refined version for delivery on my TCOLE. So I think we'll be able to take some of the background course and do an online delivery of some of it. I don't think it will ever replace the value of the larger face-to-face course because of the interactivity. But we are, but again, it is lower in the queue of priorities right now for education services. But we understand we need more out there, so we're actually looking at an online version.
If I could add to that real quick, that's another great example because Colin oversaw field services for so long. In that conversation, we talked about breaking it into 2 chunks, right? Like a 4-hour how not to get indicted. And then there's an additional, 12 hours of advanced or something like that. But if you are in a 4-person agency and the chief says you're doing backgrounds and you don't, where you could actually go in and do something that day. Or if you're a superintendent and want to know the basics of a background and what's expected of your chief administrator, you could do a 4-hour course. So rather than building one big course that has everything, let's break it into chunks so it can be deployed and used as needed. And I think that's the direction we're going with that as well. The other,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, the one thing I wanted to say about the in-person class that we're teaching, the secondary benefit to the agency is we are getting a lot of feedback, and so questions about what has to be sent through TSS and more detailed questions that we're able to come back and kind of standardize. I know there's going to be some tabs coming out on certain things that will be helpful, but I think that's another critical reason that we need to be out in person teaching. My TCOLE has a very important function, but the interaction we have allows us to refine our product.
Well, I appreciate the teamwork that you all display and demonstrate just on a daily basis internally and working with each other. It's nice to see you all not working in silos because that happens quite a bit. But also, I heard other great examples of, anticipating needs, identifying issues and problems, anticipating needs, and then the problem solving that y'all are, demonstrating, as we're rolling out a lot of new services and, we just have a lot more capacity and capability as the agency grows, and y'all are using, I think, the resources well and very wisely, so appreciate it. What other questions or comments? We will next go. Gretchen, you're last but not least. We'll go to government and external relations with Gretchen Grigsby.
Good morning, commissioners. So I will begin with talking about the system that we have all been discussing here today and will continue to do so over the next weeks, months, and years, which is the Open Text Records Repository. Commissioner Watkins, to your question, the Open Text Records Repository is a open text and TCOLE developed system. Open Text has been in existence for quite some time. They've proven themselves to other state agencies on their capacity for security and a robust system. And so this system is developed unique to Texas and to TCOLE. So we are very excited about that. Other states may have some database that they use to collect personnel records, but this is a unique to Texas system. As we've said, we are currently in the soft launch phase. We're in week 2 of 3 of that. We have brought in, as Chief Stevens said, a group of early adopter agencies. As we do with our advisory committees and the commission itself, we're very intentional with how we selected those early adopters. We made sure that we have a very large agency, a less than 5-person agency, so very small. We have an independent school district police department. We have a university police department, a constable's office, a sheriff's office. And so we made sure that we were getting a good representative sample of law enforcement agencies across the state. They're also geographically distributed. And so they've done a very good job so far in testing out the system for us. One of the things that our IT team had developed was I'm calling it like a TripAdvisor page where these early adopters can log into this and give suggestions, ask questions that they might all have, where TCOLE staff can then go in and answer those questions and collect ideas as we continue to refine the system. So that's also where we are housing the training materials that we are using for them. It's got reference guides. It's Camille Stone-Stanton, our records supervisor, has done a good job of developing some videos on training and how to use the system. And so that's where those are stored for right now. As TJ had mentioned, there are going to be 2 categories of access for Otter. That's going to be your file uploaders and your background investigators. We are somewhat limited on the number of users that we have access to based on our contract with OpenText. One of the things we're going to look at in next session is asking for additional funds so that we can expand the number of licenses. But the smallest agencies and academies will only have 2 users, and that can be a file up. Both of those 2 users can be both file uploaders and background investigators. But the largest agencies will have 10 users that will be available through the system. Again, I think as we roll this out, we will largely be able to meet the demand that will be out there, and knowing that we will continue to expand the number of users available once we get the additional funds, hopefully next session. At the end of the soft launch phase, we're going to be evaluating our readiness to go live statewide. As the boss said, that evaluation period is going to be right around May 1st. We will be putting out information to agencies within the weeks prior to the full launch. That will include those training videos that we've talked about and some additional ones. That will include the reference guides. One of the benefits of having our conference earlier this year, which I will get to in a little bit, and having that in August, is that the system will still be new and we'll be able to have multiple deliveries on training for Otter at that time, should there still be questions then. But until we do go live, we do continue to encourage agencies to digitize their personnel files and to categorize them in the ways that Otter will require you to categorize them as you're uploading them, which of course in the personnel files is commendations and awards, sustained reports of misconduct, and periodic evaluations. So if you can help us help you at this time by getting your records ready to upload at the time the Otter does go live, I think that will lead us all to better success. Again, we are planning the May 18th rollout of the assignment status manager, and that is another thing that agencies will be able to do to prepare for the full go live date, where they can begin designating their file uploaders and background investigators in TCOLEs. As Chief Stevens said, Otter will eventually replace TCOLE Secure Share. To kind of give you an idea of how that's going to happen is when you go in to upload documents for, say, Cullen left TCOLE, we would be uploading his documents. There will be 2 folders. One of them will be what is the confidential statewide employment database, and that is where the A file or the personnel file will go. And the other folder will be the secure share folder, which is everything else, the G file materials, the department file materials, and they have different retention periods. So the A file, the personnel file will be life plus 75 years. So essentially permanent. And again, to reiterate, the reason behind that is so that if Cullen were to go to another agency 10 years from now, that A file material would still be available to that subsequent hiring agency beyond the agency's records retention period. The secure share /G file /department file folder has a 60-day retention period. So we are cognizant that that G file material is out there, and we want to make sure that we are being consistent with the secure share, facilitating that transfer between agencies without us being the custodian of that document. We have record staff that is preparing for this whole system to be launched fully. Camille Stone-Stanton, as I mentioned, is the supervisor. She's getting her team of 4 records analysts plus 1 temp ready to serve the state. I have also had to make a couple of those calls to my peers, letting them know that I'm going to be stealing some of their stuff, not just telling them, but working with them to bring their staff into the records fold so that we can all serve the state as the system rolls out. I want to address, I know Chief Lamo, you had mentioned the concern about the confidentiality of this document, of these documents that are going to be housed. And that's really in two aspects of it. It's the cybersecurity components, which OpenText has been really great about. Our IT team has been really great about understanding the risks that are involved in bringing in this personal information into our system and making sure that we are doing everything to protect that. The other component of that is public information access. So reiterating that this is the documents that come to TCOLE will not be going to any person or any agency even, except for the purposes of hiring. So it is only to be made available to another law enforcement agency when they are hiring an individual or seeking to hire an individual. And that will only be released to them with that release of information from that individual. So just making sure that everybody is comfortable with that, and that'll be part of our messaging going forward as well. So I will pause there on questions for Otter before I move on to the rest of my report.
For agencies that are trying to get records organized, how are we getting that information out and marketing that?
Again, as part of Sunset, all of the, if you recall, the model policies that every agency was required to adopt, the personnel file model policy, we've rolled that out, and the education of that through just about every opportunity at the sheriff's conference, at TPCA conference, when we went to JPCA, when we went to, we go to TPCLS, to second in command school, every opportunity we've talked about it at virtually every time I get a chance to get in front of it, every time Colin gets in front of a group. And of course, as part of the inspections and the audits that we do look at and see, have you adopted the model policies? And that date has long since passed. And I'll say that all of the agencies across the state, we can see that they have uploaded, that they do have the model policy. Now, adopting a policy and following it, that's perhaps something different. And so we are still doing that education piece to make sure that agencies are following that schematic of how to keep their records. There is the personnel file, which is for civil service agencies, the A file. It contains any commendations, and it's just already broken out, and that's how Otter has been built and set up. It contains all of the really good stuff, any commendations, any attaboys, attagirls. It contains all the really bad stuff. If an officer's been suspended, demoted, or terminated, it contains that written instrument to that order of suspension or demotion or termination. And then it contains the annual evaluations for an officer, and that's all that's in the personnel file. And we've taken that education out across the state for the last two solid years. And then there's the departmental file, or for civil service, the G file. And that is a file that is really for the chief or the sheriff or the constable or the fire marshal or the chief law enforcement officer to maintain and manage themselves for the supervision and discipline of the officer. It contains complaints that were either unfounded, that were where the officer was exonerated, or there was just minor discipline, anything below a suspension or a demotion. And so we've carried that information out across the state consistently over the last couple of years. And so our hope is that agencies are already doing that. They've already got their files organized. Now, we do recognize that there's some that surely don't. So we'll continue that message. And as we roll out Otter, we'll be reminding them, hey, that personnel file that's got all the really good stuff, all the really bad stuff, the annual performance evaluations, that's what you upload when an officer or a telecommunicator or a jailer leaves your employment. That's what you upload to Otter, to the what is the confidential database. And as Gretchen alluded to, or as she said, for you, those are public documents. When it comes to us, they are not. We are exempt from having to release that in an open records request. That's what you send to us within 30 days of the officer's departure. Upon request from another hiring agency, that's when you would upload that department file or G file material that would be there for 60 days for other agencies to access while they do their background. We don't see that. We don't look at it. That exists like it does now with TSS. It'll exist on another plane of Otter, if you will, for agencies to share and look at that information as they make their hiring decisions, and it rolls off the system within 60 days. And that's in a nutshell the education piece that we'll be rolling out. And it's really continued education that we've been doing for a couple of years. We'll add in the part about Otter.
Yeah, I would say that continued education on the two different types of files is still warranted. That's probably one of the questions I receive most often. And I'm going to make a statement publicly because I was recently at a conference and heard a presenter make this statement. And then I had several people ask me about it throughout the next day or two. The comment was, TCOLE is trying to get everyone in the state to be civil service. And I was like, well, obviously you don't understand the civil service process and how an agency might receive that status. But yes, there are similarities because we do have to accommodate so many different types of agencies. You spoke about it from whether it's geographic, size, type of agency. And yes, we have a lot of agencies in Texas that are civil service, so the process had to work for them. So hence the files so that we can accommodate their needs. So again, I will make a statement that, TCOLE's goal is not to bring civil service to every agency throughout the state, so.
Yes, ma'am. And in the education pieces that we do, the statute, our sunset statute, and the advisory committee that was formed, they essentially modeled the model policy after chapter or section 143.089 in the civil service statute. So I can understand how it certainly appears that way. It is very similar, and so
we just took it an extra step. Somebody took the liberty of taking that little leap there. So anyway,
exactly.
Lots of information from Gretchen on part one. So questions?
I just got one question here. So on the way Otter works, so if you're a hiring agency and you're doing a background investigation, you pull from Otter, is it all organized by what it is, or is it just like a massive data dump?
So I'll answer that question in two parts. The first part is the confidential statewide employment database, which is the A file, personnel file section. When you upload a document, there's a required drop down that you categorize that as accommodations, awards, periodic evaluation, or sustained misconduct. For the TSS portion, the secure share portion, G file, department file, it does not have those same required drop downs. So there is a potential that will be a large upload.
Thank you.
I have one statement, recommendation, question to everyone who's presenting. When we are educating and marketing to the end users, is there a way for us to start doing a standard like one-page job aid? So someone can look at a sheet of paper and like, here's our flow, here's our thing to do. To everybody.
Yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah.
This is one where I worked with Jessica to develop a one-page visual aid on the file types, because not only is that a question we get externally, but when we're having discussion internally, we're not always agreeing. And so that concerns me. If we don't know in our own shop, how do we expect them to know outside this, right? And so in building that, it actually generated some discussions that were really important between me and Jessica and Gretchen and Camille, like the 60-day retention of those files and where they would be, and then how that would change if there's a second request. And so it helped us in developing that. It's not something you can teach from, but when you learn it, that is a one-page summary that helps you see all the pieces fit together. So yes, exactly that flow chart, John's team built that, and we had a lot of discussions around it. It better informed our decisions, but now when we're explaining it, there's something people can look at. I have a similar one. We're going to talk about provisional licenses. We built the same thing and used it internally so that all the teams understand the way those pieces fit together. In the conversation with credentialing, well, that's our responsibility. Yeah, but here's how it impacts me. Well, that hadn't occurred to us, and so when we look at the chart, we can see the impact. But it gives us a summary where we all look and see how those pieces fit together. So we are trying to do that more and more, and you're right. that's what's most important for the people that leave. They're not going to remember everything I trained them, but that gives them the prompt to know where they might be having a breakdown.
And so on our website where we have all the forms, can we add another section below that says TCOLE job aids? That way, if someone has a question, they can go, oh, here it is. I lost the paper from that class because it blew out the window when I stopped at the gas station.
And I think that coincides, like, I want to change the way we use tabs some. Because sometimes we update it. We did one on the PIO, which we'll talk about later, but then as courses get added, I want to update it. So I don't want people to print it and put it on their desk. I want them to be able to go back to that link and see the most up-to-date information, because some of these things evolve. We've got it. There's legislation. We want to get the information out as soon as we can, but as it grows and changes, you should know where to go to get the most up-to-date information on that particular thing. So we can attach aids to those as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Other questions right now? Okay. Part 2.
Okay, moving on. So preparation, of course, is underway for the 90th legislative session. That includes the interim charges that are specific to TCOLE that I've included in your packet here. One of them does relate to the agency standards that Chief Stevens had discussed. That one is in the House Committee on Homeland Security and Public Safety. And then another one ties in with these pay status projects that TJ referenced, with talking about reserve officers and what their authorities are and how they are eligible to be used. So there's going to be quite a bit of ongoing discussion, I think, even leading up to the January start of the 90th session. And discussions have already begun on legislation that might be proposed. We don't have actual language before us yet, of course, but we look forward to being part of those discussions. Of course, one of the other biggest parts of preparing for the legislative session is preparing our budget requests, the legislative appropriations requests. And Commissioner Harvey, we look forward to working with you on the budget committee. Commissioner Lameau, one of the things that we do intend to request is additional resources so that we can go out and deliver the trainings, the background investigator courses, things like that, that we know are valuable to our licensed community, and we want to help them, help us all be better. The strategy and the messaging on all of this is so important, so we really do look forward to working with the budget committee, and as we get ready for the 90th session and developing our exceptional items to bring to you for the June meeting. We are fortunate in that we have a lot of really great stories to tell. Otter is a phenomenal example. The high school pipeline is a phenomenal example. And I think Commissioner Lowe, you had asked a question about a potential increase in the licensing course providers. And I think there is the potential that the high school criminal justice career pipeline, though they do have to partner with a licensing course provider, the school district has to partner with a licensing course provider. I think there may be potential for some additional generated interest in having those so that their school districts can teach that in their region. Like I said, we've got a lot of really great stories to tell, and we're looking forward to bringing those to the legislature and showing them with what we've been doing with the money that they've given us so far. So that's very exciting. Moving on to our special events, we have the Peace Officers Memorial Ceremony coming up on April 26th. That is not this coming Sunday, but the next Sunday at 6:30 p.m., where we will be recognizing 25 current and 5 historical fallen officers and their survivors. So we are preparing for that in the final stages of that. That's always a meaningful ceremony, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And I think I speak for Danny as well, that that's something that is true to all of us and close to our hearts. The Achievement Awards, Law Enforcement Achievement Awards ceremony, as I mentioned yesterday, will be held June 26th in the House Chamber at the Capitol. The names that you all approved will now be moving forward to the notifications that we'll be sending out next week. So we are excited for that and have a lot of great folks to recognize. And then again, the conference, as we've been talking about, will be August 11th through 13th at the Waco Convention Center, with registration opening on August the 10th. Again, why August? That's a little bit outside of our normal schedule. That's because if you think about things that happen in the fall in a city such as Waco with a major university and their football team, that time frame was what was available to us when we signed the contract. And so we were looking forward to that. And I think Waco is going to be very good to us. Next year, we will move back to our typical October conference timeframe. So for now, that is where we are on that. Any questions on legislative preparations or events?
Melissa, for our new commissioners, I'm assuming that we've gotten the information out about the conference. Thank you. I thought I remember seeing it, but I wasn't 100% sure. What other questions do we have for Gretchen?
Judges. She talked about it yesterday.
Yeah. Gretchen, you had mentioned a group of people that helped, that are instrumental in helping with the awards. And do you have that list of names that you could?
Absolutely. Yes. So again, thank you for that reminder. So to thank the judges that put a lot of time and effort into reviewing the many nominations that we had received for the Achievement Awards. We had Sheriff Russ Authier of Parker County. We had Chief Anthony Boone of the Longview Police Department, Constable Leticia Vasquez of Bexar County Constable's Office Precinct 2, Officer Gabriel Candia of the El Paso Police Department, and our public member Nick Atwood from Lubbock. So
Yeah, we want to thank them. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of information to go through, but we very, very much appreciate their efforts and their support in this incredibly important initiative for TCOLE. So thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
I have a couple of final
Oh, I'm sorry.
final points. Sarah Beth Barksdale, our public information coordinator, continues to manage some increasingly complex requests. While the public license lookup has decreased, the requests for PSRs, the personal status reports, the requests that we are getting have been very data driven. Or requiring a large in-depth review of investigative files, making sure that we're not releasing any personal information or open investigative files. So we've also been working together to navigate what is public information and what goes to the records team. So I wanted to thank her for that and her work. And then finally, on our communications front, you see Cade here taking photos, and he's been doing a really great job of getting out the Ask TCOLE series. I want to invite anybody who has a question for TCOLE that you think other people are asking, that you bring that to us and we can do one of the short videos that we've been doing and put that out there and answer those questions proactively on our social media platforms. Commissioner West, you had mentioned on marketing the courses that we have out there, new courses that when we put out this course for new or prospective new chiefs, we're intentionally doing more marketing on that on our social media platforms. Rachel Reinhardt and her team have the education services bulletin that they put out there. We've got the briefing. And so we're trying to be kind of multimodal in how we put that information out there. But we want to make sure that we're reaching as many audiences as we can. And so we'll continue to strive to do that. And that is the end of my report.
Any questions? Okay, I'm going to ask everybody, we are going to take a 10-minute break, 15 max. We still have a lot of material to cover today, so we are going to do our best to keep it at 10 minutes, please. Thank you. I need to, excuse me, I need to apologize to the new commissioners. I know we did introductions yesterday. No, he's back. Yeah, I know we introduced our new commissioners yesterday. You know, made the comment that for those of you tuning in, you may notice some different faces up here. So, like I said, I know we did introductions yesterday, but someone very graciously brought it to my attention that we might ought to do introductions again today in case there were some folks that weren't able to join us yesterday. So I have the privilege of introducing our three new commissioners. Sheriff David Kreiner from Midland County Sheriff's Office. He has over 44 years, I got it right this time, sir, of state and local law enforcement. He also serves as the second vice president for the Sheriff's Association of Texas. And from what I hear, if anyone knows him, he's very, very active in his community, not only serves here on TCOLE and his community as the sheriff and the Sheriff's Association, but serves in many, many roles and volunteers throughout the community. So we're so glad to have him with us. Dr. Rita Watkins, who resides in College Station. She's self-employed as a licensed professional counselor and supervisor. She formerly served as the executive director for the Law Enforcement Management Institute of Texas. And as I mentioned yesterday, we lost one of our commissioners who had served both of her terms, and she was very passionate about anything related to mental health. So the commission, and I think the entire law enforcement community, has a passion for licensee wellness. So we appreciate your knowledge and experience, and I know that you'll bring a lot of experience and perspective to the commission. So appreciate having you here. And then Jason Griffin serves as an assistant chief with the Department of Public Safety and has over 24 years of experience there. He currently serves as the assistant chief over training operations. So it's a great nexus here to the commission. He served in many divisions throughout DPS. But I know that his experience in training and experience as a large agency here in Texas will also bring us a unique and valuable perspective here on the commission. So I want to welcome our three new commissioners and also thank the commissioners whose terms came to end, Jason Hester, Sheriff Mike Griffiths, and Patricia Burris. So if we could welcome our new commissioners. We are going to move to agenda item number 5, updates on the advisory committees. We'll go first to Colin, if you could talk about the motor vehicle stop data committee.
Yes, ma'am. The Motor Vehicle Stop Data Committee is winding down its efforts. I think the largest product that they will have is a definition dictionary on how to answer what goes in, what stays out, which has been fundamentally important, trying to consolidate and get everybody on the same sheet of music in terms of reporting. They should be reporting out to you at the June meeting with their final product and any recommendations. So they are actively fulfilling their charge.
Any questions for Colin? We look forward to the final recommendations. We'll next move to TJ, who will talk about the law enforcement polygraph examinations.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know if this group will be done by June, but they might. They initially split into 4 subcommittees, one on curriculum and testing, one on who can provide training, one on continuing education, and one on who can get a certificate. I apologize for the new commissioners. This is a committee that's primarily obligated with creating a process for getting a polygraph certificate under TCOLE. Polygraph examiners were previously regulated by TDLR, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, that ended under sunset. And so now we are taking some responsibility. They will have to have a certificate, and there are certain restrictions on how an agency can use polygraph examiners if they don't have a certificate. The subcommittees came back, and the committee largely agreed on the recommendations. Almost all of them are referencing professional associations that guide their industry and their standards. So it's not like they're developing new ideas. They're largely relying on standards that apply across the nation. Aaron and I need to draft rules consistent with their recommendations for them to approve. But in the last meeting, they were concerned about how agencies will deploy polygraph examiners, particularly those chief administrators who don't have experience in that field. And so they asked if they could develop model policies that would help agencies know how to not just deploy polygraph examiners, but they would essentially create a code of conduct for the operation of polygraph examiners at the agency level. So that's not a direct request in the charge, but I think it's consistent with that. So I told them if they want to develop it, present it to the commissioners for consideration. That's certainly something they could do to explain how it fits in with the certificate and the usage at the agency level. So I think that is the subcommittee they're going to work on before they meet again.
Okay, question on that update. Okay, if you could also give us the update on the licensee wellness, please.
Yes, ma'am. So this group has worked considerably in the past. There was a break. We reconvened. There was discussion in the group about becoming more of a standing committee, as you had referenced in the last meeting. And what the presiding officer asked is if they could just work through the end of the year in their current form and have more discussion about how they would operate in a more extended capacity. So they are considering that, but they don't have any specific requests on that yet. The reason we met when we did was so that they could make recommendations for our conference. They did recommend, I think, 3 different presenters that they thought would do well at our conference. They stressed that if they're competing against our classes, can they present more than once, or can we find ways to ensure that everybody has the opportunity to attend some of these presentations if they're interested in the wellness presentations? And so we're working on that. And I'm working with Gretchen and Danny, and even some conversations about if we have a catered lunch or something, is there a time when they could present when everybody would be available and could benefit from that? And that might be something we work on with the peer support network. In the conversations they were having about the training, there were a lot of conversations about workers' comp and the approach to fit for duty and the stigma attached to some of these things. And in the end, what we decided is that the group itself would like to build a presentation and probably facilitate a roundtable discussion at the conference. So they might be the 4th presenter, but it would be based on ideas and concepts this group had discussed in their work. And so they created a subcommittee to work on building something to present at our conference. And the idea behind that is things that chief administrators could do immediately without getting new resources, without making changes, just an understanding how the pieces fit together, the resources that are immediately available, and their ability under the new rules. They did have some discussion about state grants and getting that out, and the DWI letters. I do want to touch again on the DWI letters that are going out. All licensees who've been arrested for DWI now get a letter from us recommending things that they can do to better prepare themselves for the informal process if they want to try to maintain their license, and in particular getting some type of SASE evaluation and engaging in treatment if recommended, so that they can avoid a similar situation in the future. The blue chip program has been the critical piece in that, was finding someone that anybody could go to and get that free initial evaluation, do so anonymously so their agency doesn't have to know about it. And blue chip is actually modified. Normally they have you show your agency ID, but if they've got terminated because of their arrest for DWI, they can use the letter they got from us in order to get that free evaluation. So I feel like that's a really important step in that program. And then the last thing the group worked on is agenda item 9 is in here, the emergency suspension rule. This seemed like the perfect group to review that and have discussion. We tried to narrow that rule so that it's only deployed when absolutely necessary, and so we got feedback from the group on that rule as well. That's all I have on that group.
Well, we want to again thank all the committee members for their commitment and their time. and for their work on the committees. And it's, I find it exciting to hear that they're wanting to, that they're coming up with ideas and wanting to even expand upon what the original charge was. I mean, I think that shows their commitment and dedication and passion for the committee that they're on. So kudos to them on that. Any questions on that subcommittee? Okay. We will move on then to agenda item number 6, which is to discuss and take action on proposed amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 211.16, the establishment or continued operation of an appointing entity relating to the definition of public benefit to the community provided by a law enforcement agency in House Bill 33 of the 89th regular session, and the communication equipment requirements. And for that, we'll go to General Counsel John Beecham.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Before I turn it over to Assistant General Counsel Heath to go through the specifics of each rules for the benefit of existing new commissioners, staff, and people in the audience and watching online, it's always a good idea to refresh ourselves on the overall and overarching rules process is required by Chapter 2001 Administrative Procedure Act of the Government Code. And what you have before you through agenda items 6 through 17 today are either rules that are in their first reading and presented to the commission for the first time today, or rules that have been presented at previous commission meetings. They've gone out they've been published to the Texas Register through the Secretary of State's office. They've been open to what is called public comment. Members of the public, licensed community, and or just general members of the public can submit to the register or to TCOLE directly their thoughts, commentary, concerns, etc., support for the proposed rules that you have before you today, and you will have some public comment. You do have it in your packet. Some of it was received after the time you got your notebooks, and we will address each one of those in turn. But in breaking those further down, the first 4 rules that you have before you today, these will be the first readings. If for your consideration, if you choose to adopt if you choose to adopt this version of the rules in order to go to the Texas Register, the first 4 rules will go to the Texas Register in the way I just described. You will see public comment on those. They will come back to you at a future commission meeting where you will vote for their final adoption. At that point, they will be an official TCOLE rule. They will be adopted and have the full dignity and force of statute. The second half of the rules, the other big category that you're going to be looking at today, as I described earlier, are the rules for final adoption. You have 8 of those. Again, those have been sent to the register. They're before you today. They've been presented at a previous commission meeting, and we'll specify which ones are which as we go through these. Those will be finally adopted today if, for your consideration, you choose to do so in light of the public comment we received. Again, items 6 through 17 relating to rules will be for your consideration, and we will go through each one of these individually and let you know where they are in the procedural process.
Yeah, John, for you and your team, as you're presenting each of these rules, if you can note the public comment, please, related to that rule. I want to make sure that we acknowledge, make sure that people know that if they did make public comment, that yes, we have received it and we have taken it into consideration. And we do appreciate, I always get a little frustrated sometimes because we'll have rules and we'll have discussions, and many times we receive no public comment. So we really don't know which way people are thinking unless we get out and really start talking to people. It always frustrates me when we get into a setting and somebody might have a complaint about a rule, and it's like we have a voice. We have a process by which you can provide feedback, provide suggestions. Please use your voice. Love to see more public comment on these. It would help us make better decisions. So anyway, sir.
Okay. Good morning. First, we have a proposed amendment to Rule 21116. As required by HB 33, also known as the Uvalde Strong Act. This proposed amendment would require certain agencies to have an assigned public information officer, and these agencies include a municipal police department, a sheriff's office, a county constable's office, a school district police department, and the Texas Department of Public Safety. The assigned PIO will have 1 year from initial assignment to obtain the certificate. And if they do not obtain the certificate within 1 year, or after obtaining the certificate, it becomes invalid for failing to timely renew, the agency will have to assign a different PIO. Next, HB 33 provided additional requirements for agencies' active shooter policy, which are detailed in this amendment. And then HB 33 also requires an agency to have access to at least one breaching tool and one ballistic shield, and requires at least one breaching tool and one ballistic shield be available at each campus of a school district or open enrollment charter school. And these requirements are reflected in the proposed subsection A3 E through F, right there. And then this amendment also clarifies the intended communications equipment requirement, which requires a radio or a cell phone for certain officers, not both a radio and a cell phone. And I'd like to kind of break this in two parts here. If we have any questions on any of the aspects we've already covered right here.
Yes, thank you. I have a question with the letter E, 3E, with regards to the breaching tool and ballistic shield. Does this policy that we're putting in there provide required training of those devices? You know, having access to tools and not knowing how to use those tools, especially a breaching tool and a shield.
So the requirement from the statute was just that they have access to them, not that there
They know how to
necessarily
use
be a
them.
policy. But that's certainly something we can look into.
Because I've talked with some of our SWAT guys before about the ballistic shields before, and they said, you know, it's not as easy as just holding it. If you don't know how to use it, there's a lot of tactics that go into utilizing those things. And same with the breaching tools. If you're stuck at a door and you have a hooligan tool and you don't know how to use it, kind of defeats the purpose of having it and not knowing how to use the tool when you need to know how to use it.
Okay.
Is there a mechanism to, and I know this is a big lift because that's a lot of training for those things. That's not lost on me. But at the same time, if we're going to require people to have these items, they need to have the knowledge of how to use those items, in my opinion. I don't know what the other commissioners feel about that.
Commissioner Barry, could I add to that?
Please.
21116 covers the requirements for the agency, generally equipment and policies and that type of thing. So this is meeting the statutory requirement. And then if you remember, each training unit, we can designate up to 16 hours of training, what type of training it would be. Okay. So if Alert builds a class on that, we could obligate every officer to take that in the next training unit to go along with the equipment the agencies now have. So there's a mechanism available to us to do that.
Okay.
And I think having Alert develop the training would be the best way to do it, since that's what it's intended to be deployed for. I think they've been very responsive to the requests we've made in the past. And so we could work with them to see if they could develop something we could use in the next training unit.
I concur with that as well. Yeah, and if we can make sure we work with our partners at Alert for that, I think that resolves a lot of my concerns. Thank you.
For subsection A6, where it lists the 5 types of entities that will be required to have a public information officer, is it that the statute requires, only highlights those 5 types? For instance, like, you know, colleges and universities, public or private police departments don't have to have one appointed under the statute, and so that's why we call out those 5 specifically?
That's correct. These are the 5 that are required by statute.
Thank you.
All the other agency types can have one. They can go through the same training, they can get the same certificate, and they can be designated with the agency. We're just not going to check for compliance with those. These will be the ones that will be obligated and face administrative penalties if they fail to.
Perfect. Thank you.
On that same note, the PIO section, and if I'm in the wrong spot, let me know. 'Cause I saw some public comment on it about length of the certificates. Is that applicable to this part, or is that on another? So later,
That
I'll come
will be
back to that
covered later
then.
on.
All right, I'll come back
Correct.
to that later.
Any other comments or questions? Aaron, do you have anything additional?
I'll Next, move to the other part of the amendments to Rule 211-16, and this is the public benefit agency application and deactivation. So finally, Texas Occupations Code, Section 1701.163 requires TCOLE to determine whether an agency provides public benefit to the community when creating or for the continued operation of an agency. And this proposed amendment would provide factors to help TCOLE determine whether an agency would or does provide public benefit to their community. These factors came about due to some struggles and lessons learned in evaluating past applications for the creation of an agency. Subsections B and C address public benefit for entities that are applying to create an agency. Subsection D addresses public benefit for agencies already in existence. Subsection E through J address the application process for creating an agency. And then subsections K through L address the deactivation process for an existing agency. And I'm going to turn this over to John to give an overview of the new agency application process.
Thank you, Aaron. We'll get this chart up here to help everyone digest, including staff and myself, the subsections that Aaron just covered, subsection B through the subsection L, I believe it is. We're going to give you a general overview of what those subsections encompass to give you a visual representation of it. So it's easier to conceptualize versus wading through the prose we have in there. And number one, I want to start off with the TCOLE objectives in this process and then cover the three main components. And if you have any questions beyond that, we can go into that, obviously. But I did want to cover these so you understand staff's orientation based on the statute and what we're trying to achieve with the rules. So with that being said, what are the TCOLE objectives behind this particular rule and the new application process? If you look in the top right-hand corner, you'll see the TCOLE objectives box. Find the best solution that addresses the governing body's underlying need. Ensure success of new agencies, increase professionalism, ensure consistent standards and delivery of law enforcement services, reduce administrative burdens and expenses, and supervision and oversight at the agency level. And you'll see that's incorporated throughout. And again, that's the overriding objectives and orientation of the new application process. Now, we all know, as you heard in Chief Stevens' report, talking about the new agencies that are being created, the evaluation of agencies, and we've talked about this over the last couple years, and agencies that had been denied or agencies that were in the process. We have accumulated a good deal of experience and data points through going through, whether it's approvals, whether it's denials, or whatever the case may be, agencies that have found alternatives or entities who have found governmental bodies who have found alternatives to starting a law enforcement agency. But some lessons we have learned over the past several years, we hope to address in this process is the comment that new agency application process takes too long. The governmental body didn't understand requirements to start a new agency. The governmental body already spent time and money to create a new agency and hired someone who they promised to make them chief administrator. The local jurisdiction voted to create a new agency where the governing body is allowed to have an agency and no appeal process if they've been denied a new agency. Again, those are in the points we want to address in the yellow blocks on the right-hand side, in the middle of the right-hand side on your chart. Any questions or comments on the objectives and some of the points we want to address? Staff, any commentary? Okay, we'll move into the main components then. Along with those objectives we talked about, you see the start at the top, and of course you got your key here, flow chart shape explanations in your bottom right. If you look at the top, there is one component there. And going back to our objectives, I call this the best solutions box right here. This is where you have the executive director video, you have manuals and worksheets, workshops and counseling with TCOLE staff to come to the decision, what is the best solution? Does the governing body is a law enforcement agency needed? Is that the best solution for the problems that they are trying to solve? So that's that phase. Second phase, if the answer is, yeah, we want a law enforcement agency, and we believe after all this counseling and talking in the preparatory stage with TCOLE that that's our best option, we determine, as you'll see in the rule, and it comes from statute, what constitutes public benefit. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But the question is, do you provide a public benefit as defined under the proposed rule? And is sustainable funding, you form an application for that. You'll see there, GB affirms that they can meet all the requirements of the technical requirements of 21116 if they're approved as well. But before getting to that, the question is, have you proven in your application that you provide a public benefit as defined under the rule and you have sustainable funding? Okay, if they've established that, they move on to the next phase. But if not, and importantly, staff determines, the executive determines, as you'll see in the rule, the executive director determines that they have not demonstrated a public benefit under the criteria, and they cannot demonstrate sustainable funding, then they can appeal the negative finding, again, going to address some of the experiences we've had in the past. We want to make sure they have an appeals process. If it's denied at staff level, the executive director level, then it comes to you as the commissioners as an appeal, that where they say we can prove public benefit as shown to you in this proposed rule, and we can prove sustainable funding. Now, let's go on the affirmative side of that. Have they established that they can provide a public benefit and sustainable funding? Yes, they move into the final application for the rest of these 21116 requirements that you have before you.
John, could I step in there real
Absolutely.
quick? When they get into the light blue box right here, that's really where the genesis for this proposed rule comes from. Because as the current rule is written and as the statute exists right now, without more clarification in this proposed rule, essentially, it's just a very broad, subjective question, ultimately to me. Does this town, does this school district, do they have a public benefit to their community for this law enforcement agency? And that's it. Just a broad question that I'm left to answer with input from the legal team, input from the directors, but ultimately that's it. And then if I look at it and we've come up with a couple of different processes. We've had a panel of our folks try to review it so that I'm not one lone person in the state of Texas trying to make a very critical decision for a community that I don't live in and that I would have to intentionally go and drive to, that I may have never been to even. And so if the answer then is no, there's no appeal, there's nothing there. And they do write back and they want to say, what's the appeal process? And they push back because they have been led to believe, or they just believe that they need a police department. And so that's the genesis. That's what we're trying to build into that, is their opportunity for appeal. But what we hope to do, starting out with a simple video of me explaining all of this process and I think what is lacking out across the state from a lot of folks is the remarkable, what a big thing it is to have a law enforcement agency. That's big. That's a huge thing, and it's kind of underestimated. And so beginning at the start right there, we want to help people understand what a large task it is that you're wanting to take on, to help them look at other alternatives that are less onerous, that don't come with the potential of a 1983 lawsuit, that don't come with a regulating body coming in and perusing through all of your files, all of your equipment, things like that, and help them understand that literally you are wanting to take on a group of people who have the authority to take away someone's very freedom of movement and put them in the jail. That's a big thing. And I think too often people go into that, entities go into that without the full understanding of what that really means. And we're trying to bring that through and to, as John has already explained and as you see in the proposed rule, to try to bring some objectivity to such a subjective question of public benefit to the community. It's still going to be subjective. We still have to make those, because that's the statute. We still have to make those decisions, and we're ready to make that. But we want to try to have some objectivity in there so that it's not just one person in the state of Texas, me or whoever comes after me to say yes or no. It needs to be more than that, and that's what all of this is. And then if they don't agree after all of this, they have the ability to have a real appeal process to come to you all. That's the genesis, and that's where we are in that blue box, the large blue box. And then again, sorry to interrupt, John, but if it's yes, they'll go through the process. There is a process that TJ and his team are building out. And then you've already seen the no there. But I just wanted to interject. That's what we're struggling with that, because again, oftentimes we look at it and we don't believe that it meets a public benefit to the community. But essentially, that's just one person saying no, or it's one person saying yes. And we want to get away from that and bring a little more objectivity to that for a community that I may have never ever been to, and I don't really. It's hard to know their needs.
John, if I could add two quick things to that. The trick is explaining that we're not saying, no, you can't have a police department. We're helping you find the best way to provide service delivery to your community. So if you already have a sheriff's office or constable's office providing service, those people are better trained, better equipped, better supervised. They have policies in place. They have a process for investigating allegations of misconduct. All those things are in place. And we're going to give you permission to build something new to replace that. You're going to have to convince us that it works that well or better. If it is going to be less than that product, then why would we send someone less qualified to respond to a 911 call for service? So that's our goal, is walking them through that process and understanding. And what I refer to this sustainable funding application is more like a business plan, that this will be a guided process where you have to outline how you're going to what you're going to pay someone, what level of experience you're going to require, how you're going to make sure they get the training they need, how you're going to develop the policies you need, how you're going to maintain the equipment you need. Like, you're going to have to convince us that you can do at least as well, if not better, than whoever's providing coverage now. There is no place in this state that you can call 911 right now and someone won't show up. It's not like we have new areas we need to cover. We just got to find at least the same or better way to do it. The second part is that when you say yes and you move from that teal box to the dark blue box, not everybody has to go through that. That if you got an agency that was created by statute, if you are a DA's office that's setting up investigators, you start at that dark blue box. This is for municipalities that are asking to create a new agency. But if a hospital district gets one by law, they skip ahead all those other steps. They don't have to do the business plan and the workshop. They may choose to do so. I think it would be very informative, but they're not obligated to.
I think, Aaron, if you want to go through some of those, the specific objective criteria that Chief Stevens and TJ were talking about, if there's any questions. Okay.
Sure. Yes. Sorry. So the goal of these rule additions is to provide, as we've been saying, objective measures and consistent processes when evaluating new agency applications or issues involving existing agencies. And these are drawn from specific examples of what we have seen in both failing agencies and successful agencies. And it'll also allow agencies to know what is required of the agency and what will put that agency at risk. So first, under subsection B here, a prospective agency is presumed to provide public benefit if one of these 5 criteria are met. And that's, the first one is if the chief admin is an officer elected under the Texas Constitution. Then we have an agency is required by statute, not that it just can exist, but that it is required to exist. 3 is the agency serves a municipality that contains a population of at least 10 people, and that municipality is without an agency. Sorry.
10,000.
10,000. What did I say?
10.
10,000 people.
That means they're listening, Aaron.
Good. Excellent.
How fast?
Yeah. The next one is agency consists of investigators for a county or district attorney's office. And then finally, the agency serves a school district, open enrollment charter school, private school, state institution of higher education, public technical institute, or a private institution of higher education with an enrollment of at least 2,500 students. Any questions on subsection B here. Okay, next, if a prospective agency does not fall under subsection B, they can show they provide public benefit through a balance of the factors in subsection C. And I'll try and go through a lot of this list here. They show that there's an unmet law enforcement need for the subject community. And the next one is there's a consideration of the presence of other agencies within the subject community. Then we have desired law enforcement functions, roles, and responsibilities within the subject community. A comparison of establishing an agency versus other options to address the desired needs. The ability to provide continuity of law enforcement services. The provision of full-time versus part-time coverage. And then the staffing to be achieved by full-time, part-time, and reserve. Then we have the ability to recruit and retain qualified licensees for appointment. The ability to recruit or retain a chief administrator. The ability to supervise, train, and develop licensees. To fulfill administrative obligations required by law. Access to legal support and other supportive resources. And then the oversight and support to be provided by the governing body. And then any sort of prior agency and governing body history with the commission, and then any other relevant factor the commission considers relevant. Any questions about the factors in subsection C? Next, subsection D contains issues with the operation of an existing agency. And so the first one here for determining they no longer provide public benefit refers back to, and this is a correction that we need to make from what's up there. It should say subsection C and not subsection B. So we're asking for that modification. So the relevant factors contained in subsection C, which we just went over. And then turnover rate of agency staff, history and seriousness of the agency's audit and inspection deficiencies and violations, neglect of the agency's duties, lack of oversight or abuse by the agency's governing body, involvement in activities not related to the statutory purpose for the type of agency, and then again, any other factor the commission considers relevant.
I do have a question about the abuse of governing body. We see regularly where city councils and administration gets cross and actions begin being taken against the agency, whether it's realignment of the agency, it's modifications of contracts, things like that. Is that going to be like, can someone call like, hey, city council hates a PD, so let's get rid of it? I mean, are we going that far with that one, or is that more broad?
Aaron, do you mind if I?
Please.
So one of the things that I've discussed in these 4-cause inspections is external complaints. If we get a complaint that someone is failing to meet an inspection standard, I expect that we will go review that single allegation and standard. We're not going to go do a full inspection and audit just based on a complaint. So the example I always use is they say this police department got all Toyota Camry rental cars and that's what they're driving. They got rid of all their police cars. We would go look, and if they actually have police cars, then we're done. It's resolved. If we do find that they're driving Toyota Camrys instead of police cars, then we may do a broader investigation of that. I think what that anticipates is like one of the ones that was focused on by the advisory committee that created the standards was agencies which are deriving an inordinate amount of their income from citations, not in compliance with the law and not in compliance with the comptroller's office. And that abuse extends beyond the agency. That is the city making inappropriate use of the agency. So I think that's what we're referring to there, is where we have direct jurisdiction and concern over the deployment of officers and the benefit to the community, not so much an internal fight between a chief of police and a city manager over resources. That's for the chief administrator and the city manager to resolve. But when it starts to have community impact on the safety of the community, then that's when we would be involved.
Thank you.
And I'll also say, Commissioner, one of the phrases that I really appreciate our legal team putting in is based upon a balance of the following factors. We're going to avoid, a singular issue that can be resolved and that can be rectified in working with the agency. And so whenever you look at things, again, all of this comes from historical work that we've seen of successful agencies and of poor performing agencies. It's never one thing. Whenever we see a poor performing agency, it's really not 2 or 3, it's 4, 5, 6 things that are going wrong. And so I think that's what's key, is upon a balance of the following things. We see that in time and time again.
And do you apply weight to any of these items, like involvements in activities not related to statutory purpose of the agency?
I don't know that we would necessarily assign weight to it, but again, I think when you begin to balance those things out, you see far more than just 1 or 2 things. You see a lot of things going wrong, and that's what would lead us to consider closing an agency.
I've got a question. Do y'all foresee, should this need to be enacted, because it's kind of subjective to some level, like, do you foresee any issues down the road trying to enforce this provision if needed?
Well, this is more objective than it is right now, because it is subjective completely. It's 100% objective right now. And these things actually bring some objective factors to it so that it becomes less subjective. But sure, I mean, one of the things we build in is that it would now have, if enacted as it is here, it provides some appeal, whereas right now it really doesn't. It's 100% subjective with no appeal. What the legal staff working with TJ and has really put in here are some objective factors to help drive the subjective decision with an appeal process.
I do have a quick question. Can I back you up to subsection C? I'm sorry.
Sure, yes.
And I'm just looking at how will a governing body demonstrate future abilities? So like 8 through 11, how do they demonstrate the ability to recruit, retain qualified licenses, and recruit and retain chief administrators, and train and supervise and develop? How might they demonstrate the ability to do that?
Commissioner Griffin, that's a really good question. That's really been my focus. That's the idea behind having them develop a business plan for how they do it. So the best example I can give you is we have a chief of police that's making $39,000 a year. In that same county, he could get hired as a temp jailer for $43,000 a year. So if someone is taking less money to be a chief of police, how are you going to be able to convince me that you're hiring the best qualified person to run your agency, right? So what I want them to do is a salary study within their county and be able to show what a competitive salary would be, how many years of experience they intend to hire, what level of education they're required. Do they have to have supervisory experience? Do they have budget management experience? They're going to outline in that business plan what their intent is. And then back to Commissioner Berry's question, 2 years from now, when you're paying someone half what you promised, they don't have the experience you said, now how are you going to convince me that you are providing a public benefit? Again, we're back to the idea of you're providing a lesser quality product than you had when the sheriff's office was responding to calls and handling all the calls in that small city. And now when they're telling me that the sheriff's department passes your officer writing tickets on the side of the road because they're not on the radio, and the sheriff's department handles all the 911 calls, all your officer does is write tickets, then we're back to, okay, all of these things combined lead us to believe that you're not providing the public benefit you promised.
TJ, if I could, also, one of the things we would look for is what is your plan or strategy to investigate misconduct by that chief administrator? If you have a complaint of alleged misconduct, who's going to investigate that? We want to see what that looks like. That would be in keeping with the TCOLE rules. There's requirements for that too. So that would be a key factor.
And that's actually a huge one, Commissioner, that we see a problem with is it, especially in the small towns that are trying to stand up police departments, they have volunteer chief administrators or people running the city that don't have the training and experience that they do in larger cities. And so if they have not considered that beforehand and don't have a plan like the chief was talking about, then they're setting themselves up for failure. The big one we see is the lack of legal support, that they have a contract with several other cities with someone who they can ask questions to, but the chief of police doesn't feel like there's someone they can call with questions. So we want them to outline what their plan is, how that process will work so that the chief doesn't get in that position if they do start an agency.
And if I may, finally too, One of our interim charges relates directly to this matter right here. One of the expectations of the legislature and the governor's office is, of course, for us to manage the establishment and the continued operation of law enforcement agencies. And this is our path forward, I think, to do this. And in our interim charges, this will drive towards answering that.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have subsection E, which begins the process for applying to create a new agency. And so they will have to complete required training, and this includes that introductory video from the executive director that we heard about, and then a workbook where they'll have to gather information and come prepared next to a commission staff working group meeting where all of the documentation will be covered, and will determine basically whether a law enforcement agency is the most appropriate solution for the need that they're trying to address. Next, subsection F is after the required training, they submit the initial application. And this will include the public benefit and the sustainable funding, and then it'll also outline the prospective agency plan, the business plan that TJ has been referring to. Next, lays out the process for if that application is denied, and this is the initial application, they may appeal to the commissioners during a public meeting. And if approved, the entity then can submit the final application demonstrating everything in subsection A has been met. If they are not denied, if that initial application is approved, then they may submit the final application demonstrating all the requirements of subsection A have been met. And then after submission of the final application, the commission will perform an inspection, and that will confirm that they meet the minimum standards for the creation of a law enforcement agency. And if so, they will have a new agency. Any questions about that agency creation process? Okay. And then the last two are, oh, sorry, there's one more here, and that's denial of an initial or final application may include conditions that have to be satisfied before they can reapply. Next, K and L deal with potential deactivation of an agency. So if an agency no longer meets the minimum standards, they may be deactivated, and that includes the separation of all licensees, including the chief administrator, and the revocation of the authority to appoint licensees. And an agency that has been deactivated must continue to maintain records required by the commission and must report motor vehicle stop data for all full years and partial years that elapsed prior to deactivation. Any questions about those two subsections?
Any questions?
I've got one on K. When you so if someone's deactivated, how do you separate those licensees? What does that process look like?
We will direct the agency to separate them. Then once they submit the F5s, then we'll close out the ability to make new appointments. I expect that field services will work. We've actually been working on a plan. This addresses some of it, traffic stop data, but you still got the TSS obligation of G files, and especially in the small cities we see, once the agency is shut down, the city administrators don't always respond to those requests. Otter has given us the ability to create a method for hosting those files so that agencies can still obtain them even when an agency is deactivated. So we're kind of working through a series of steps. My expectation is that if the executive director issues a letter telling them it's been deactivated, that the field service agent will go to that agency and work through those steps with them to close it out and make sure they understand the obligations and liabilities that remain because they had an agency. For example, even if we host the files for other agencies, they're still subject to public records requests. They still have records retention requirements under law. They still have to meet those.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna
Just a reminder.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll entertain a motion. Please keep in mind that a motion would need to incorporate the change. that was noted by Aaron. So go ahead.
And again, commissioners, this rule is the first reading today for your consideration. If you choose to adopt this for proposal, this will go to the Texas Register. This will go out for public comment. You will get the public comment if there is any, and bring it back to you for final adoption at a later commission meeting date. So this, again, this is the first reading. This will go out today for additional comment and consideration.
I make a motion that we accept the proposed amendment to TCOLE Rule 211.16 with a change for subsection D1 to reference section C rather than section B in the rule, and publish the Texas Register for public comment and further adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move to agenda item number 7, which is to discuss and take action on proposed amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 211.29, the responsibilities of the agency chief administrators relating to the submission of the active shooter incident response evaluation and report prescribed by alert within the required timelines to conform with House Bill 33 from the 89th regular session. We'll turn this over to TJ and Aaron, please.
Thank you. This is a proposed amendment to Rule 211.29. As required by HB 33, the proposed amendment would require chief administrators to submit a preliminary report to TCOLE within 45 days and then a final report to TCOLE within 90 days that evaluates the agency's response to an active shooter incident. Also, chief administrators would be required to report to TCOLE within 7 days of discovery that a licensee applying for enrollment or appointment with the agency, a person enrolled in the agency's academy, a person enrolled in any academy and sponsored by the agency, or a licensee appointed with the agency does not meet the minimum standards for enrollment or initial licensure. The genesis of this provision came from the amendment to Rule 217.1, specifically so that TCOLE could terminate a provisional license when the provisional license holder is found to not meet the minimum standards, which that rule we'll discuss shortly. But this will be a helpful tool in other situations to notify TCOLE of those who are potentially ineligible for a license. And then finally, this proposed amendment would require a chief administrator to report to TCOLE within 30 days after the successful completion of personnel orientation and field training by a licensee. This is for your consideration for posting to the Texas Register.
Okay, so I have a question about the active shooter report. Following response to active shooter, if I have an officer who is near an active shooter incident that checks by and holds traffic outside the incident, is he considered to have responded to the active shooter, or is he just providing support services down the street? Have we contemplated how we're going to address those, like ancillary responses to those?
And I think what he's getting at is anytime we have an active shooter incident, you could have dozens and dozens of agencies respond. So what does that look like?
Well, I believe the statute defines the particular active shooter incident. I don't have that in front of me, but
I'll add to that, Aaron. I think that the statute references, the report actually goes to TDM, to DPS, and to Alert. We're kind of the facilitators in the process. I know Alert has developed the report, and my goal in this is, just like I'll talk about in PIO, is creating a single point where you're not having to send reports to all the different agencies, make sure you met all the deadlines. You submit it once to us and we provide it to them. So I think Alert is going to be the one who ultimately defines what it is. And my goal is, because I think they're best positioned to help us identify when those incidents occur. So just like we do with everything else, we can send notification of the obligation to the chief administrators who are obligated to report, right? And I think that they will say, like you said, we only had an ancillary response. We didn't actually engage on the scene. We were on, in the outer perimeter, or you got to do a report if you were involved past a certain point. But I think Alert is the ones who should define that. And we're only facilitating the process of the report to those 3 other entities.
So when this comes back for final adoption, are we going to have that recipe available? Because if we adopt a rule something happens the next day and we don't know what we're doing yet. What's our timing on that?
Commissioner West, I know in discussions with Alert, the perception is this report would be from the agency that had primary jurisdiction affected by the event. So if it was a primary or secondary school, if they had an ISD police department, they would be on the hook for the larger report. If you responded, or one of your troops responded 2 counties away to assist an agency, at least the initial perceptions of that was you would not have an obligation to report this. So they saw it initially coming out of the House bill as being the agency of primary response. If it was a school and there was no ISD police department, it's a rural department, and the sheriff and his staff had to respond to it, then the sheriff would be on the hook as the agency of primary jurisdiction for this report.
So for our example, we have 3 school districts that use the sheriff's office. If we showed up, even though it says the chief member of law enforcement agency chief administrator must submit to commission a form report. So my officers go, or my deputies go to that, even though the sheriff's office has it. I don't have to file a report, even though it says the chief agency of the officer that responds. That's where I'm getting confused a little bit.
And Commissioner West, I think what you're asking for is just a definition of response to an active shooter incident, right?
And then who's ultimately responsible? Because it says here, officer responds, the chief administrator shall report. So that right there makes me feel like I am required to respond or file a report because I had a response in my agency. Even
Right.
though it sounds like maybe that's not the full story.
The other bit of good news is that there is a working group that's getting together next week to talk about a lot of the ongoing HB 33 questions. And this is something, this rule in particular is something that I intend to bring to them to make sure that we are all working together to get on the same page with issues like that.
Okay, thank you.
No, and I would agree. I think it's going to be really important to define in the rule. I mean, just for a regulatory component of it is who has to fill, who's responsible for filling out the form. So that's got to be defined.
One question. So Chief Vineyard, you mentioned that y'all are going to be working with Alert on this though, this specific piece.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And again, I apologize for not speaking more broadly for new commissioners, but for example, training compliance and some of the things we do, the traffic stop data reports. My expectation is that we send at least 3 letters and tell the people their obligation before we take enforcement action. So again, back to Commissioner West's question, if it's not clearly defined in rule, if event occurs and Alert identifies those agencies, I expect us to send them some communication telling them they have an obligation, not just that it's in rule, but following the event that they're told you're one of the group that should make a report, you make it to us and we will forward it to these 3 agencies so that if they have read they've read the Uvalde Strong Act or something else, they understand the process for that. It's impossible for all the chief administrators to know all those things. Those that are on the commission do, but not all of them do. And like he said, if they had a peripheral response, then we need to let them know what their obligation is.
Good, thank you.
I have a question to Commissioner West's point. Would it be appropriate to just identify it here that the agency, that the primary jurisdiction, that chief administrator of the agency of primary jurisdiction is the one required to do it? Or do y'all want to wait to have that work group work through those waters?
I would say since we've got those working groups planned already and we work hand in hand with Alert, why don't you, if it's at your pleasure, let us work with them and we certainly want to meet the intent of the legislation. And so let's work through that and we can, again, this is where I'll defer to John. If y'all choose to adopt this for public comment to go to the state registry, if it requires a substantial change, then it would certainly need 2 more readings. If it's not a substantial change, then it wouldn't. Or we could certainly, again, deferring to John, we can table this and bring it back with more later on. But I do think that the working groups that are already established, since we do have planned meetings with them, we can identify that more clearly later on.
It's my feeling, I don't know how the commissioners feel. It sounds like what's being discussed right now may be substantial, especially with what the working group's coming with respect to time and of this. It sounds like to me we need to defer to the June meeting, is my opinion. What are y'all's thoughts?
It's hard to predict the future, what's going to come out of these working groups, what language comes out, what new requirements, and you can certainly defer until afterwards. But at the same time, I don't want us to kind of commit to what may make us push this out further, what this language is. It's hard to predict, obviously. So if you all feel comfortable with it moving forward to incorporate, at least see what, if any, potential input we have as akin to public comment. Certainly this is policy comment we're talking about here, and the working groups that Chief Stevens and Gretchen described. It may be worth going forward with this and seeing what develops, and instead of it may be taking that path.
And John, it's much easier to scope it down on the second reading, right? If we reduce the number of obligations, that's easier than expanding.
It can be.
And I agree that this, every time we have an alert, anything, Gretchen doesn't sleep because her phone rings nonstop. So this would be good to get out to the public so they can have the same questions that we're asking here and other ones that we're not even thinking about.
If I can tag on to that, that's exactly right, because putting the actual language for the stakeholders to look at out into the public realm is helpful for them to have a starting point that we can further refine.
Okay. Any other questions? Aaron, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments?
May I make a quick comment on subsection H? That's critically important in the provisional license because people will get licensed with a lesser process, but it also solves some other problems. This was an opportunity for us. So at least one of the cases you heard yesterday, someone had been removed from an academy, then went into another academy and had that first academy reported the disqualification to us. None of that problem would have occurred. Some people have read this and we were careful in the language, and then Cullen almost got Aaron and I confused. But number one in there is for a licensee. So this isn't for a large agency that has a bunch of applicants and they screen people out based on criminal history. You're not obligated to report those to us. But if a licensee from another agency applies with you and you recognize they're disqualified, then you would have to tell us about that so that we could address the matter. So we're not trying to create new obligations. It's just that there have been agencies who discovered someone's disqualified. They don't let us know and they go and apply somewhere else and get a job, and we're just trying to stop that process. It's particularly important with a provisional licensee. If you find they're disqualified, you got to let us know and we can immediately cancel that license under the rule.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we adopt for entry into the public register, the text register for public comment, amendment to existing TCOLE rule 211.29.
Second it.
We have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I know we have in the audience some representatives of different management groups. I would strongly encourage you to take this back to your constituents, make them aware that this will be out for public comment so that they have the opportunity to look at it and to read it. And please encourage them to use the voice that I spoke about earlier, versus having to, to deal with, people being confused or disgruntled or whatever on the backside of it. So please, this is an opportunity to provide public comment, and we want and need that. So we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is to discuss and take action on proposed amendments to existing TCOLE rule 218.3, legislatively required continuing education for licensees relating to the supervisor continuing education on advanced incident response and command to conform with House Bill 3389th regular session as implemented in the Texas Occupations Code 17.01.3526. And TJ, we'll go to you and Aaron.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is a proposed amendment to Rule 18.3, and as required by HB 33 and implemented in 1701.3526. This amendment would require supervisors to complete an advanced incident response and command continuing education course every 2-year training unit, and would update rule language to conform with recent legislation. Also, as required by Occupations Code 1701.253 and .3525, it would require individuals licensed as a reserve law enforcement officer or public security officer to complete alert continuing education every 4-year cycle, and alert level 1 not later than August 31st, 2029. Proposed Rule 218.3 for your consideration for publication to the Texas Register for notice and comment.
Any questions or comments?
I do have a question, and I should have looked it up. The definition of public security officer, is that considered law enforcement officer? Because if it's not, are they allowed to even attend active shooter training?
So the public security officer is one of our licensees. There's very few of those licenses left, or the individuals that hold that license. Just one active, right? Or is it just one active actually still holds the public security officer license? But the statute referred to all officers required to take alert, and so we had already made the change for peace officers, and we're just covering some of the other licenses.
Of course, do you foresee that creating confusion with the other licensed security guards? Is there some verbiage we could put in there to designate that one?
Yeah, if I may, the public security officer is kind of an artifact license. It's not one we issue anymore. To get one now requires a complete BPOC. And so it's very narrowly used. We only have one left in there with the Texas Military Department.
We get that, but if you're like a licensed security officer that does, private security gigs, and you're like, oh, and you see this, like, oh, I can go to alert now. Like that, I think that's the confusion we're trying to prevent. Thinking they have the ability.
Alert. Just to answer the original question, alert will allow them to train, or him to train.
I'll also point out that in 1701.001, the definitions part of our statute, public security officer specifically says this term does not include a security officer employed by a private security company.
Yeah, and I may just say it's one of those. I would love to have it where it's easily, but sticking with the statutory language is probably better until that person rolls off, and then there could be some cleanup language. But otherwise, because the definition in there, as Gretchen said, since the person is still there, and they are still, I think, sticking with the statutory link is just the way to go.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we adopt for publication in the Texas Register the proposed amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 218.3.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll move to agenda item number 9, which is to discuss and take action on proposed new TCOLE Rule 223.20, emergency suspension for imminent threat. That's relating to licensee suspensions where a chief administrator is unable to fulfill their duties, and the licensee presents an imminent threat to conform with Texas Occupations Code 1701.5011. And we'll go to General Counsel Mark Duncan.
Good morning, Commissioners. proposed new rule 22320 is implementation of the legislature's emergency suspension statute in Texas Occupations Code 1701-5011. That statute says TCOLE shall adopt rules for emergency suspensions in situations of imminent threat to public health, safety, or welfare. Typically, when a licensee can't perform their job-related functions, the chief administrator can require a fit for duty review. That fit for duty review addresses almost every situation where a licensee poses an imminent threat. So this rule identifies the very rare circumstances where a chief administrator is unavailable to order such a review. TCOLE will only need to intervene when a chief admin, including an interim chief admin or a governing body taking responsibility, are all unavailable, and there's an imminent threat posed to the public. Most of these examples are one or two officer agencies where the chief is the person posing the threat, or they're in a coma or out of the country. So this is going to be exceptionally rare. To make the limited application even more clear, Section C lists the kind of incidents where TCOLE would consider to invoke this rule. We don't want TCOLE to be first responder in these situations. This is not a we go investigate. So you'll see in C1, prior law enforcement intervention. There should already be a report. Somebody close to the action should have taken action. And because local law enforcement really should be stepping in initially. And in C2, we're trying to avoid stigmatizing voluntary commitment, especially drug or alcohol rehabilitation. So we've narrowed voluntary commitment to mental health issues dealing with issues of homicidal or suicidal ideation. These suspensions are only 90 days long because, again, they're only meant to address imminent threats. This buys time for local agencies and governing bodies to resolve whatever that threat is. Section D lays out the procedures. To suspend in these situations, we're going to give notice to them. We're going to set a hearing. They can contest it. And this is just implementing what the statute from the legislature says. Any questions about this?
Any comments or questions?
I have a question about subsection D, about how the commission will request a hearing with SOA. What's the consequence if the commission fails to request a SOA hearing? This doesn't address it, but is there one, or what would that be?
I imagine when we're not fulfilling our duties under rule that somebody could sue us and could get it. You know, in district court, somebody could probably get their license on suspended or get an order from a judge if we're not fulfilling our obligation.
Okay. And then I guess a similar one would be, and maybe it's the same answer. What if SOA just doesn't like timely set a hearing or set a hearing at all? You know, what if SOA is like, oh, we'll hear this in a year, you know, then you've got an interim chief suspended or a chief suspended or for a year or something like that, you know? So just curious about like the, you know, don't want these proceedings to drag on forever if someone challenges it.
Yeah, when we request hearings with SOA, we cite the rules that we're looking for, and we have a felony suspension rule, and those are always very quick hearings because we'll cite that this is only a 90-day suspension. If we ask for a hearing and they set it more than 90 days out, we're going to have to redo it all over. So we're going to make SOA aware of the process and the timelines here, and they work with us pretty well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Do we have a motion?
One more comment. Thank you for reminding me, Aaron. We do want to ask for one amendment. The "and" is highlighted right here. We wish for clarity to make that an "or." So we would like the list of items there. Obviously, you don't need all four to be any of those 4 issues.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion, again, keeping in mind the potential inclusion of the change.
I make a motion that we adopt for publication in the Texas Register with the change to subsection C3, where we change the "and" to an "or" for TCOLE proposed rule 223.20.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll move now to agenda item number 10, which is to discuss and take action to finally adopt the amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 211.1, definitions relating to the definition of a public information officer. to conform with the Uvalde Strong Act, House Bill 3389th regular session, and administrative duty pay status. Aaron?
Thank you. This is Rule 211.1 up for final adoption. The amendment would add a definition for public information officer as established in HB 33, and it uses nearly identical language from HB 33 that defines a PIO. The difference being the word assigned is in the proposed amendment instead of employed or appointed, which was changed to accurately reflect a PIO's relationship with a law enforcement agency. And it would also add a definition for administrative duty, which is a pay status that would allow an agency to temporarily restrict a licensee's authority to act under that appointment without having to separate the licensee. We received 2 public comments for 211.1. Colin, did you want to cover the first public comment from Edinburgh Police Department?
The public comment was a series of questions about the pay status, administrative duty pay status. And the first question is, are licensees placed on administrative duty still required to complete continuing education? The answer to that would be yes. Continuing education requirements are tied to the individual licensee and the possession of the license, so that would not be changed by the status. So in the same vein, the answer is yes to the second question. The licensee is considered active for the purposes of all license requirements, including training. So the short answer is an agency can't put somebody who's not compliant with their training on administrative duty status to avoid the training requirements, nor the firearms qualification requirements, nor any of those other things. It's not a place to hide people by realigning them. If they had somebody on administrative duty status, they may be eligible for some other relief if it's catastrophic medical illness or military deployment. They may have a waiver for either continuing ed and or their firearms qualification requirements, but they would have to seek relief under that other waiver process. Moving them to administrative duty would not resolve that. We're not sure what the third question is asking, or third bullet point is asking. Our attempt is the license status will show active in TCOLEs as an appointment, whereas the pay status would show administrative duty. So if someone were looking someone up on the public license lookup, or a TCOLE user was looking at that person, the license would still show active, pay status would show administrative duty. So we hope that's the answers that answers that question.
Comments or questions?
We have one more public comment, and this is from the Houston Police Department.
This is the printout that we got.
The first one of the questions I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to turn it over to TJ here. But the first question really is, can you please identify where in TCOLE rules the term exists that such definition is warranted, and currently doesn't exist in another location within our rules? And now for the other questions that are being asked here, TJ, could you cover those, please?
Right. So Chief Anderson's pretty smart, and she gets the pieces. She sees where this is going, and her question is right on point. So we're adding the definition anticipating a rule change in 21129, which I referenced earlier. In phase 3 of the pay status project, there will be an obligation for chief administrators to maintain accurate pay status for their those appointed as peace officers under them. We can't make that change right now because the rule is open. That's what you voted on in agenda item 7. once you've had a second reading and close that, then we could go back and add that obligation to do that. We just haven't done that yet because of the process that's required to get there. And frankly, we don't need to right now. We've got the new appointments being reported correctly. We're going to work with agencies to get their existing appointments updated and accurate, and then we'll obligate the chief administrator to maintain that. I think her more general question is, what is that expectation going to be? And I think that's up to you to decide and rule. We can certainly take your recommendations, but most of those obligations are you have to report a status change within 30 days. And so it would make sense that the status would have to extend beyond 30 days to be obligated to report it. So if someone's on night duty for 2 weeks, you don't need to change their status. If they're suspended for 60 days, you would need to change their status. I think the way we anticipated those most commonly to be used is by civil service agencies that indefinitely suspend people but maintain their appointment during the appeal process. They could designate that. When we have those who are indicted but who are allowed to continue their employment but are put in a position where they are not working as a peace officer, you could reflect that publicly through changing their administrative, their pay status to administrative duty. So it's intended to be a useful tool, but not to be overbearing where a 1 or 2 day suspension has to be reported to TCOLE.
So that specifically answers her last question about the 1 day suspension.
And I'm forecasting into the future. And certainly if you have expectations to how we would structure 21129, we can address that. It's just not to be addressed in this particular rule in the definition.
That's correct. Her other questions really address what will be a future rule amendment and not this rule amendment.
Do you have any other questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move we finally adopt amendment to existing TCOLE 211.1.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So we'll move to agenda item number 11, which is to discuss and take action to finally adopt the amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 211.30, Chief Administrator Responsibilities for Misdemeanor Waivers. Aaron?
Thank you. This is Rule 211.30 for final adoption. The amendment would expand the misdemeanor classes of offenses for which a waiver may be sought to include Class C misdemeanors. It would also allow the executive director to approve or deny a waiver request, which, if denied, may be appealed to the commissioners for consideration during a commission meeting. If it is approved by the executive director, it would be presented to the commissioners for ratification. And we received one public comment in support of the rule amendment as is from the Panhandle Regional Law Enforcement Academy. And this is for your consideration to approve the amendment to become rule.
Okay. Discussion, questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion that we move to finally adopt TCOLE Rule 211.30, Chief Administrator Responsibilities for Misdemeanor Waivers.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll move to agenda item number 12. Discuss and take action to finally adopt the amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 217.1, minimum standards for enrollment and initial licensure relating to the 180-day provisional license for out-of-state military or military spouses to conform with Senate Bill 1818, 89th regular session as implemented in the Texas Occupations Code 55.004 .0041. And we'll go to Colin.
Go ahead, Aaron.
So, sorry, you can start. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. As stated in the lead-in, Senate Bill 1818 amended the front end of the occupations code. So the impact of that amendment required all vocational licenses to come up with a scheme to issue military members and their spouses' licenses so they can get to work faster when someone's deployed to Texas. And so this brings us in line with that. It gives the process. It includes both people licensed from other states. So specifically, they hold a similar state license in Oklahoma or wherever they came from. But this also impacts the reactivation program. So if someone held a license in Texas, the license went inactive. Normally, there's an elaborate reactivation process. This would allow someone who held it in the last 5 years to get that license back faster. And so this brings us in line with the bill.
Any questions or discussion? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move we finally adopt amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 217.1.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move to agenda item number 13. Discuss and take action to finally adopt the amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 219.11, reactivation of a licensee relating to the full-time service requirements for reactivating a license. And Colin, you have this one too.
Yes, ma'am. This is clarifying language. Historically, reactivation of a license, we only look at full-time service because if someone's appointed as a reserve or another, we can't figure out how much time they actually spent in the business. So this clarifies that for the purposes of reactivating a license, TCOLE measures previous service based on full-time appointment, not other appointments.
Questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we move to finally adopt TCOLE Rule 219.11.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 14. Discuss and take action to finally adopt the amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 221.1, proficiency certificate requirements relating to the PIO certificate requirements to conform with House Bill 3389th regular session. And Aaron, we're back to you.
Thank you. This is an amendment to Rule 221.1 for final adoption. This amendment would exempt applicants for the PIO certificate from needing a license or appointment to obtain the certificate, and this amendment is in relation to HB 33. This is for your consideration for final adoption to become rule.
Okay, questions or comments? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move to finally adopt TCOLE Rule 221.1, proficiency certificate requirements.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 15, discuss and take action to finally adopt new TCOLE Rule 221.12, mental health telecommunicator proficiency relating to the proficiency certificate on mental health for telecommunicators. We'll go to Colin.
Commissioners, this would create a new certificate available to telecommunicators. Telecommunicators are not eligible as for the mental health officer certificate that peace officers, jailers, and justices of the peace can obtain. This was an external request, and so we certainly support it. But this creates a new proficiency certificate unique to their role, and the training requirements are unique to the role of telecommunicators.
If I might add, apropos for this week, for a telecommunicators week, that it's come up here during this meeting. This is also an effort. We worked in conjunction with the Beddoes Mental Health Institute to create this. Really, they did the heavy lifting on it. But it is part of what we're trying to do to lean more into that group of licensees, and in full recognition that too often people, when something happens out in the communities, everyone says, hey, call the police, but that's not really what happens. No one really calls the police. They call a telecommunicator who then notifies law enforcement officers to respond to this crisis situation. And this recognizes that a person who's experiencing a mental health situation or suffering from mental health, they're on the phone with a telecommunicator, and this certification essentially mirrors the mental health peace officer certification. It provides the training and a level of certification for a telecommunicator to achieve, with the idea that in the comm center, someone who's called up and is in a crisis can be on the phone with a certified professional to help through that situation and to better direct officers in their response at what they might be rolling into. So I think it's a great, I presented this and talked about it at Telecommunicators Conference, Public Safety Conference up in Denton here just a couple weeks ago, and was a resounding applause for this to come through. I think it's a little overdue, so I just wanted to mention that since we are here at Telecommunicators Week. Thank you.
And there is one other issue to address. We did receive one public comment, and it was in support of the rule amendment as is, and this was from the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute. So this Rule 21112 is for your consideration for final adoption to become a rule.
Okay, do we have any comments or questions?
Just a comment, Madam. Yes, and so on behalf of every mental health professional, I think, in the state of Texas who works closely with our telecommunicators, thank you so very much for this certification. They are oftentimes the very first ones who get that phone call. And so I greatly appreciate the work and everything that's been done for this proficiency certification. Thank you.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we move to finally adopt TCOLE Rule 221.12, mental health telecommunicator proficiency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Motion passes. We will move to agenda item number 16, which is to discuss and take action to finally adopt the amendment to existing TCOLE Rule 221.33, standardized field sobriety testing, instructor proficiency, relating to the requirements to requalify for an SFST instructor proficiency certification. Colin, we'll go back to you.
Commissioners, the proposed rule amendment was brought to us by the state coordinator, the state NHTSA coordinator for SFST, to clarify some of the courses required, some of the name changes over time. But one thing that they wanted clarified down in section C is that the SFST instructor certificate is required to teach the SFST in the basic peace officer course. I don't know why that was a question in some people's minds, but that certainly needed clarification. That the standardized field sobriety test practitioner course taught in the BPOC must be taught by someone authorized to teach the course. So most of it's clarifying language, but we're being more explicit in the last section about that requirement.
Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we move to finally adopt TCOLE Rule 221.33, standardized field sobriety testing, instructor proficiency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Agenda item number 17 is to discuss and take action to finally adopt new TCOLE Rule 221.48, which is Public Information Officer Certificate relating to the PIO certificate and continuing education requirement to conform with House Bill 33 of the 89th regular session. And we're back to you, Aaron.
Thank you. This is new Rule 221.48 for final adoption. As established in HB 33, the new rule would create the process for obtaining and maintaining a public information officer certificate. The applicant will have will have to take the initial PIO course and report it to TCOLE to receive the PIO certificate, which is valid for 1 year. The Texas Division of Emergency Management requested changes to the rule as previously proposed, and the new language clarifies that the certificate holder must complete PIO continuing education hours required by TDEM prior to each anniversary of the issuance of the certificate to keep it valid. Before you, up on the screen, is the new language. And lessening the burden of the previous requirement that a person must restart the certificate process if the certificate becomes invalid. The requested changes would allow the person to renew the certificate by completing all outstanding continuing education hours if the certificate becomes invalid. Is there any questions about the changed language in C and D, mostly in subsection D?
Madam Chair. Aaron, you said earlier the change between the version that went out for public comment, which I know you'll talk about here in a minute, and this particular version, it's to subsection C, correct?
It's mainly in D, but it is also in subsection C as well.
I think there's a renaming in subsection C, or clarification at least.
Yes, so in subsection C, we were using the term continuing education course. I believe that was pulled from statute. TDEM requested it be changed to hours because they're going to use hours to determine whether they're able to renew. And so we made that change to continuing education hours as required by TDEM up there. D is where the real change happened, or a lot of the change happened. If previously, in the previously proposed rule, if the certificate became invalid because they failed to timely renew, they had to restart the entire process over. And that meant that they had to take the initial PIO course. TDEM requested that they be allowed to complete any outstanding continuing education hours to renew their certificate.
So this would lessen the burden from the proposed version.
That's correct. And it would also leave available the avenue for them just to retake the initial PIO course if they so chose.
Does this change, does it subject any persons not affected by the previous version to regulation?
No.
Thank you.
I also noticed you did on B, just to clarify, year from issuance, not just the original one said a year.
Oh,
But I noticed you added that.
okay, I think that's correct too, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just for the context for the new commissioners, the Uvalde Strong Act obligated the Texas Department of Emergency Management to have certain entities have certified PIOs, and that includes cities, counties, and school districts. And then there's a separate section that said the agencies within those, the police departments, had to do the same, but it is also referenced to the Texas Department of Emergency Management. Our goal in creating the certificate, and the reason TDEM didn't necessarily request we change the rule, they explained how they plan to award their certificate, and our goal is that anyone who has a license or is attached to an agency and has a PID, reports that training to us, will get awarded a certificate, and we can report the training and certificate to TDEM rather than that person having to report it twice, right? So if our expectations and requirements align with TDEM and they do their regular training that they do, we can report it for them and create them from having dual obligations in reporting of training.
I noticed there were some public comments about the subsection B 1 year from issuance.
I was about to get to that.
Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted the questions to go through, but are you okay with me addressing that now? Sure.
Before you go there, every time we hear the word certificate, licensees say there's $35. Is this $35 every year?
No, we intend to automatically award this one. And in fact, part of what I'm working with TDEM is that if you have previously taken the course, they under their FEMA model, they would award you a certificate. Because of the nature of this legislation, they're reviewing it right now to determine what that window would be. But for example, if they say 5 years, then I intend to notify everybody who's taken that course in the last 5 years that we're going to award them the certificate. And we're going to award it on August 31st based on the statute. And then that will start their training window, their 1-year training window.
And we did receive 4 public comment for new rule 221.48. I'm going to sum them up and not go through them individually because there was a lot of overlap between all 4 of them. But one of the public comments, one of the commenters is opposed to the requirement of needing the certificate at all. This is a requirement by statute. This isn't just something that TCOLE has come up with independently. So we are implementing a requirement by statute. Next, there were a lot of comments, regarding the renewal and the time frame for the renewal. Various comments were they don't want to renew every year. They want to align the renewal with other certificates. They want to align the renewal with the 4-year training cycle, or they want to align the renewal with the 2-year training cycle. The 1-year renewal period is required by statute. And so that's why the rule is written as it is. And that sums up the 4 public comments that we received.
Aaron, the proposed version said a certificate is valid for 1 year. The amended version up for final adoption says 1 year from issuance. What's the difference?
I think that was a clarification to notify people that it's 1 year from issuance instead of 1 year from whenever you continue when you completed your your initial PIO course, and that will grab a lot of the people who have taken the PIO course within the last few years that did it before September 1st, 2026, when the certificate and the requirements all go live. And so they will get 1 year from September 1st, whereas afterwards it'll be whenever you submit to us that you have completed the training, it'll be 1 year from that notification.
It's a more forgiving timeline.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions or comments?
Last one, did these changes need to be resent back out again, or is this?
No, sir. That's the timeline is more forgiving in subsection B. It lessens the regulatory burden in subsection D. It doesn't increase the amount of people who would be affected or regulated by this. These are good to go.
Thank you.
Commissioner West, I need to revise my answer because they always tell me that I'm wrong. We will automatically award you the certificate, but if you want a printed copy, you still got to pay for it.
$35.
Just say, stop telling them it's free. It's not free. It'll be on your PSR, but if you want a copy, you got to pay for it.
Thank you for that clarification, sir. Okay. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we move to finally adopt the revised rule to TCOLE Rule 221.41 as presented for final adoption.
Second.
Clarification.
0.48, not 0.41.
Correct, 0.48. That's correct.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Before moving to agenda item number 18, I will ask my colleagues, do we need to take a break or not? We will spend a few minutes on agenda item number 18. Do you need to take a break?
5 minutes.
Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to ask everybody. I know the folks in the back have been waiting patiently for quite a while. So let's please keep it and be back in seats in 10 minutes. Okay, Melissa, if you'll show us back in session, please. We're going to move to agenda item number 18, which is discuss and take action on a request for a Class A misdemeanor waiver of TCOLE Rule 217.1, minimum standards for enrollment and initial licensure. And I believe that we have Brazoria County Sheriff Leonard Bo Stallman on behalf of Corey B. Eason. If you gentlemen want to come forward, and if you'll state your name, each of you state your name for the record before you speak, that would be appreciated.
Sure.
And if you want to, before y'all speak, I'm going to go to the executive director and let him open us.
Yes, ma'am. For the commission's consideration, Sheriff Stallman has approached us to seek a Class A misdemeanor waiver for this individual who was hired by the sheriff's office prior to Sheriff Stallman coming into office. And we found this, and I'll have to look back in here. I think it's in your packet. I don't remember if it was during an audit or if it was a wrap-back hit. So this is an after-the-fact waiver. Nonetheless, it is unlike one of the situations yesterday. We would normally move to cancel this individual's license. However, Sheriff Stallman would, in lieu of that, like to ask for a Class A waiver. That's a lengthy process where they've done a full background to ensure that it was an isolated incident many years ago, back in the 90s, I think about 30 years ago. They'll describe more about that, and again, you have in your packet all the details of it. I don't want to belabor that issue or dig too deep into the weeds, which you've already read through. I've reviewed it, and under the previous process, that's flipped now that you just passed the rule a few minutes ago. Those will be a little different going forward. Nonetheless, it was one that again, I looked through and chose to go ahead and present to the presiding officer for inclusion on the agenda, and she agreed to bring forward on the agenda. So for y'all's consideration, Sheriff Stallman wants to keep this employee on at the sheriff's office. Again, I will reiterate that the individual was hired prior to his tenure, is otherwise ineligible for licensure, unless you approve the Class A misdemeanor waiver for him to keep his peace officer license. I'm sorry, jailer license.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's correct.
Yeah, Sheriff, and if, like I said, if you could state your name, and then I think the commissioners would be interested in hearing more about the request
Sure.
that you've made.
Sure. My name is Bo Stallman, and I've been the sheriff of Brazoria County since 2021. If you're not familiar where Brazoria County is located, we're actually located just due south of Harris County, and actually just due north of the Gulf of America, and then we border Galveston County as well as Fort Bend County. So I have gotten to know Mr. Eason since 2021 whenever I took over at the sheriff's office, and I've had a chance to observe his work closely during that time frame. And Mr. Eason was hired as a detention deputy in July of 2020 and served in that capacity up until we were notified of his ineligible appointment as of November of 2025. The incident causing Mr. Eason to be ineligible for his appointment as a jailer actually arises from an arrest in 1992. Mr. Eason was arrested by the Houston Police Department for carrying a weapon in his vehicle while he was transporting business proceeds to and from the bank. Mr. Eason does not dispute any of the statements in the arrest, an actual report, and he takes full responsibility. He was placed on deferred adjudication, and the case was dismissed in 1993 after completing a 1-year court-ordered probation at that time. Mr. Eason disclosed this incident to us during his background investigation, but due to a misunderstanding of the rules by our background investigator, his eligibility for appointment was mistakenly approved. Although this occurred in 2020, I am here today to take full responsibility of that oversight, but also the silver lining to to this mistake is that organization had an opportunity to work alongside Mr. Corey Eason here and truly get to know what an exceptional caliber individual that he is. Something that we may not have fully had the opportunity to realize if this situation wasn't to ever have risen. And since being notified of Mr. Eason's status, our office has completed a very full, thorough audit of all of our employees to ensure that there was no other ineligible appointments that existed. I am fully confident that our current investigation standards and procedures will prevent this from ever occurring again. In the more than 30 years since this arrest, Mr. Eason has demonstrated that he is a law-abiding and productive citizen to our state and our community. He had completed a basic peace officer academy back in 1997, but ultimately he did not enter law enforcement at that time. As you read in the waiver request packet, that numerous of the community leaders have expressed their support for Mr. Corey Eason. He's been extremely dependable, professional. He mentors our young deputies. He conducts himself with integrity, and he has represented our sheriff's office and our criminal justice profession in a very, very positive manner. Whenever our office had the opportunity to engage with the community, you could be sure that Mr. Eason, he was there to volunteer. He was there to represent our office. He's not a bare minimum of the guy road. He's not a middle of the road kind of guy. If he were, I can assure you, I would not be standing in front of you today asking you for this waiver. He is exactly the type of individual that we and our community want for this line of work. He has continued to serve the citizens of Brazoria County in another capacity, hoping while this waiver is granted. The Sheriff's Office has conducted a new and thorough background investigation on Mr. Eason, and we are prepared to reappoint him as a jailer should this committee grant that waiver request. We respectfully ask this committee to grant the waiver, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I appreciate your time and your consideration on this matter.
Mr. Eason, would you like to address the commissioners? And if so, if you'll state your name, please.
Sure. Corey Eason. First of all, thank you guys just for allowing me the opportunity. Thank the sheriffs, the Brazoria County Sheriff's Department for the support. I won't prolong the time because I know the day is going. And a lot of things have been said. I don't like to toot my own horn. I just like for my work to show for itself. So I accept full responsibility of something that I did in 1992, 30 years ago. I'm trying to reflect on those memories when I'm trying to remember what I ate for breakfast on yesterday. But yeah, I accept it. I thought I did everything possible, what I needed to do with the deferred adjudication, with and like I said, even attending the basic peace officers course after. So thinking that everything was fine, I was doing everything legible, you know, that I was supposed to do. So hopefully you guys will show the consideration to just allow me to continue to be a productive citizen for Brazoria County, for the sheriffs, and just for the community. Married over 30 years, 6 kids, 2 kids actually went here to UTSA. So productive citizen. I just like to continue my work. So if you guys see the same, I just hope that you do. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, I guess it's for the staff. Based on all the facts that are in evidence, if that incident were to happen today, what, if any, charges would be brought?
I actually looked into this, if you don't mind me jumping in.
Please.
So let me start off with, conviction's a conviction at the time. The law as it stood then was a person commits an offense if he intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly carries on or about his person a handgun, a legal knife, or club. Just having a handgun, with some narrow exceptions, was an offense. I actually think that offense, that statute, would be unconstitutional today. Today, the same statute has many more requirements, and even some of those, as recently of 2022, have been found unconstitutional. The Harris County, or the 14th Court of Appeals, about 2 years before this incident, I think, found the statute constitutional when it was challenged. And they relied on a Supreme Court case from the U.S. Supreme Court from 1939 that said, no, carrying a firearm has to have a relation to being in a militia under the Second Amendment. I think if the Supreme Court, if the statute were in effect today and the Supreme Court interpreted it, they'd say, no, that's a very narrow reading. That 1939 case, and they talk about it in 2008 in another case, Heller, says that's actually about the type of firearm at issue in that case and its relation to militia, which in that 1939 case was a sawed-off shotgun. Here we're talking about a .22 handgun, a very different type of weapon, although .22 might not be a great militia weapon. I think if this statute were in effect today, it would be unconstitutional. That doesn't affect the conviction in the past, but I don't think the conduct today would be criminal. Well, it's not today, and I don't think if the law were in effect today, it would be either. Yeah.
And can I make one statement just to clarify that it wasn't reckless? It was midday. I'm a business owner. I still conduct business today. I had a deposit bag in the car with the weapon in the deposit bag going from business. I stopped to pick up my sibling from school. And when the officer pulled me over, I notified him that, hey, when he wanted to search the car, I gave him right because I had nothing in there. And I said, hey, it's a deposit bag with a weapon in there just to let you know before you go through it. So middle of the day, not reckless, no intent of harming anyone or anything. Like I said, thought I was doing something within reason, being a business owner at that time.
Madam Chair, if I may, and go off what Commissioner Harvey said, and thank you for the additional facts there. It's constitutionally carrying a handgun. It's what the contact would be today, if that helps at all.
I just have one question I usually ask everyone that comes for waivers is,
our crew here that has answered our not so smart questions and trying to prepare for this process. And they've been very accommodating and very helpful in assuring that we were prepared for, today in this whole process. So I want to thank you and your team, sir.
Yeah. Well, Sheriff, I appreciate, obviously the audit was a requirement, but for you to, background was a requirement, for you to go back and audit to ensure you didn't have anyone else. And then putting the processes in place to ensure that this does not occur again. We appreciate that.
Yes, of course.
So I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept and approve the Class A misdemeanor waiver to TCOLE Rule 217.1 minimum standards for enrollment on behalf of Sheriff Bo Stallman for Corey B. Eason.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and I believe 2 seconds. We're going to do a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Kim Lamo,
Yes.
Commissioner Justin West,
Yes.
Commissioner Janet Atkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Justin Berry,
Yes.
Commissioner Connor Harvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Sergio Sines,
Yes.
Commissioner David Kreiner,
Yes.
Commissioner Jason Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Rita Watkins. Okay. All unanimous votes in favor, motion passes.
Sheriff and Mr. Eason, congratulations on the waiver. And Mr. Eason, we are going to trust in you that you will continue the exemplary service that you're providing to your community as described by your sheriff. We have high expectations of you, and we wish you the very best of luck and appreciate your willingness to serve your community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Okay. Oops. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, we are going to move to agenda item number 19, which is to receive public comment on any topic. Please understand that we're not able to take any action on any public comments that come forward, and we also have a 3-minute time limit. So I believe we have a couple of folks that have signed up for public comment. If you want to come forward and state your name for
anybody other than me? Good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm John Ray, and I'm the Executive Director of the Law Enforcement Management Institute of Texas. And I first want to thank you for your service to the law enforcement community here in the state of Texas. I know you all most of you work in, or many of you work in law enforcement, and this is an additional duty. Also wanted to congratulate the new commissioners and just a point of pride, congratulate Dr. Rita Watkins, my predecessor at the Law Enforcement Management Institute of Texas. She served, our organization's existed for 39 years, folks, and she was the executive director for 23 of those. That is stunning, and she is a legend. I wanted to come up as the meeting was proceeding. I wanted to provide a little bit of information about a few things, particularly how LEMIT is working shoulder to shoulder with TCOLE. Some of the information that you talked about earlier on concerning compliance with chief executives, we have made some changes to the recurring chiefs training and in concert with Chief Stevens here, who on many occasions has driven across the state and back in a single day just to spend a little bit of time with our constables and our chiefs and our command staffs to share the importance of compliance. And when he's not able to do that, Chief Cullen Grissom is always there. I would also add that in December, we had a very productive meeting with TCOLE. We're about to reopen the new police chiefs training course to address some of those things that TJ and the team have identified as compliance matters. And we have expanded TCOLE's role from just a couple of hours in our trainings to a half day in the recurring chiefs training, and they're actually going to have a full day in the new chiefs training to address some of these issues. We're also working with them on what the PIO continuing education hours looks like. We just wrapped up a course of 300 new PIOs in Conroe yesterday, and we have a plan going forward that we're working with TCOLE on to make sure the continuing education hours are at no cost when they're taken at the initial courses taken at the Bill Blackwood Institute. So I'm available for questions either here or after it. I'll stay around and answer all your questions that you might have about how we're supporting Texas law enforcement, and thanking both you and the staff at TCOLE for all your efforts.
Well, Dr. Ray, I would like to, I'm going to thank both of you, Dr. Watkins, who I've known for, I'm not going to say how many years, probably 2 or 3 decades maybe. And thank you also for your service to the law enforcement, both of y'all's service to the law enforcement profession. We deeply value the partnership and relationship that we have with the Law Enforcement Management Institute of Texas. That relationship only exists because of the leadership that has been at that organization over the years. And we also appreciate the fact that you all are the best conduit for educating not only new police chiefs, but also existing police chiefs. I'm sorry, yeah, new and existing, but also for the constables. And we are here, yes, we're a regulatory agency, but we want to see everyone be successful. And oftentimes, when someone is appointed, they just may not have access to the information or don't even know it exists, let alone, how to find it. So being able to work with you all to get that information out there is so beneficial, not only to the chief executive of an agency, but also to the agencies and to those that we serve in the community. So y'all play a really significant and pivotal role in being able to do that, because as TJ can attest to, we would much rather have people be compliant than to have to deal with it on the back end, because that's a lose-lose situation oftentimes. So we appreciate, like I said, the partnership and all that you do. So I don't know if there's any other comments or questions. Okay.
Well, thank you, ma'am. We inherited a wonderful legacy from Dr. Watkins, and we're just looking forward to upholding that.
Thank you. And then I also have a card for Mr. Rodriguez. If you could come up, sir, and state your name.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board, commissioners. My name is Johnny A. Rodriguez Jr., and I'm the mayor of the city of Balcones Heights here in San Antonio, Texas. We welcome you here to our city in San Antonio, and thank you for being here. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As the mayor of the city of Balcones Heights, I come before you to raise concerns regarding the processes used for credentialing and background checks for police officers in Texas, as well as the oversight of sensitive criminal database systems. Law enforcement officers are entrusted with significant authority and responsibility. Because of that, the systems we use to vet and certify them must be thorough, consistent, and transparent. Any gaps in background investigations or inconsistencies in credential verification can undermine public trust, and more importantly, public safety. Stronger measures must also be implemented to protect citizens from officers who have histories of violent conduct, family violence, and similar incidents. These are serious red flags that should be consistently identified, thoroughly reviewed, and appropriately weighed in before hiring, certification, and retention decisions are made. Allowing individuals with such histories to serve without heightened scrutiny places communities at risk. In addition, I want to address concerns about the potential misuse of criminal information systems such as TCIC and NCIC. These databases contain highly sensitive information and are intended strictly for legitimate law enforcement purposes. Reports or perceptions that these systems can be accessed or used without sufficient oversight, whether by individual officers or department leadership, raises serious questions about accountability, privacy, and the potential for abuse. Equally important is the role of supervision. There must be clear accountability for licensees who are tasked with oversight responsibilities. When supervisors fail to act on known misconduct, overlook disqualifying behavior, or allow improper use of sensitive systems, there should be defined and enforceable disciplinary pathways. This could include formal investigations, suspension or revocation of licenses, and mandatory reporting requirements to ensure that inaction or negligence does not go unaddressed. From the perspective of a mayor responsible for the well-being of my community, these issues are not abstract. They directly impact public confidence in local government and law enforcement. I respectfully urge the board to review current standards with a focus on strengthening background screening processes and procedures, improving information sharing between agencies, implementing clearer safeguards, and auditing practices for database use. May I please have I'm almost done. Thank you, Madam Chair. For database use and establishing firm accountability measures for both officers and their supervisors. This is not about placing additional burdens on departments, but about reinforcing the integrity of the profession, protecting individual rights, and maintaining the confidence of the communities officers serve. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Board of Directors for the extraordinary work you do on behalf of the agency. Your steadfast dedication to allowing public input plays a critical role in ensuring transparency and building trust within communities and general public. Your efforts in thoughtful administration and policy decision-making are recognized and valued. I would also like to commend the Honorable Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas, for his continued hard work and commitment to serving the people of this state. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Mayor, we deeply appreciate you being here today and you being willing to share your thoughts with us. That's what we're here to do. That's a vital part of our job. On a side note, I want to thank you and others in the area for hosting us and for the warm hospitality that we've experienced while being here. We very much appreciate it. Executive Director, I'm going to ask that you and the mayor connect, and I'm going to ask you to, or challenge you to go and pull down the meeting that we held yesterday. And I think it may bring you some peace and comfort to review that. I noticed that you've been in the audience all day today, so very much appreciate you being here for the entire time and waiting patiently to be able to express your thoughts. So, but hopefully some of what you saw today addresses some of the concerns that you have where some rules are either being amended or being adopted to address some of the things, some of the areas that you that you spoke about. But I'm sure that the executive director would very much enjoy sharing with you what is going on with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement and what's in place currently, but also what's some of the incredible projects we have on the horizon for continuing to improve. So we're not a perfect agency, but I think we have extraordinarily high standards, and we're all very, very committed to that. Some of us are in the profession, and we want it represented with qualified and ethical people that are licensed here in Texas. So I'll challenge both of y'all to connect here, and I'm sure that he will be happy to spend as much time as you would like, talking through your concerns, because I want to give you peace of mind about the agency, but also know that the commissioners, and I will speak on behalf of all of the commissioners here, that we're committed to this being, the most professional law enforcement in the country.
Yes, ma'am. And I applaud your efforts. Today's meeting was very educational and interesting. And I'm sure if I would have been here yesterday, I would have gotten the other information. I look forward to continued dialogue with that.
Yeah, I also,
Thank you.
well, no, I was going to say also, you mentioned a few specific things, and while we're not able to take action or discuss that, the executive director will. And, if there is information that, that needs to be acted upon, then you have our insurance that will happen.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you all for your extraordinary work. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, I keep losing. I lost yours. We are going to move on to agenda item number 20 and 21, which are executive session and returning from executive session. Since we're not going into executive session, we won't be returning from executive session, so we will bypass those two. And we will now move to agenda item number 22, which is to adjourn. And before we do that, I want to recognize and thank the staff again for traveling here to San Antonio. We talked yesterday about the fact that it's a lot of work to put on a meeting in Austin, everybody's hometown, but to travel, out of town increases the workload and takes people away from their families. We recognize that and appreciate all of you for the work and the efforts that you've put into making this a very successful couple of days here in San Antonio. So very much appreciate that, and wish all of you safe travels and my colleagues safe travels home. So do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.
We're going to do